On March 29th, Sony released their ZV-E1 vlogging camera, and YouTube blew up. My feed was filled with all kinds of watch reviews of my Sony ZV-E1. But I had to go back a couple of weeks and watch this very important video from everyone's favorite YouTube photographer, Peter McKinnon. Let's see what Peter had to say about new cameras in 2023.
I don't really want to review cameras anymore because they're all awesome. Like literally you can't buy camera in 2023. So just like whatever you can afford, buy the best that you can afford, and that's probably going to be good enough if you have it with you and you actually try to learn it inside and out.
Whatever you can afford, buy that camera and then learn to use it for your technique. Pete, this is great advice that I really want to hold on to. My very first review that I went to is everyone's go-to on YouTube, Gerald Undone. This guy gives a PhD lesson on any technology that he breaks down, and he's awesome. You gotta wait to the end of his YouTube review here on the ZV-E1 where he goes on a small rant which gives a little insight into Sony and the cameras that it makes. Let's see what Gerald Undone has to say.
Final feature this camera has that I want to discuss is focus breathing compensation. Now, if you've watched any of my recent Sony camera reviews, you've likely seen me complain that every new camera is getting focus breathing compensation, but they still haven't added it to their more expensive cameras like the A7S III or A1.
I love it when Gerald goes off, and he brings up a really good point about the ZV-E1. Good for you, Jared. And it's just fun to see him kind of rant about something that, well, I don't know. Is it something I can afford, and will I learn all of it? The next review that popped into my radar was Jason Vaughn. Jason Vaughn went right to the heart of me as a content creator, a photographer, and someone who likes to do video. Jason, out of the gate, goes ahead and compares Sony's new release to the Sony A7 III, and here's what Jason had to say.
We'll start off with the verdict from the general camera community first. If you're more interested in photography with light video work, the A7C hands down is the path to walk on. It's capable of 24 megapixel photos over the 12 megapixel that the E1 has. More megapixel means more flexibility.
Jason, you had me at 24 megapixels. I just love taking pictures, and I like shooting video. So the A7C, by that regard, is still a camera for me. Jason goes on for a whopping 15 minutes comparing both of these cameras, and he does an excellent job of showing you hands-on the difference between the two of them. When I left him a comment, right? Excellent review as an owner of the A7C. Your review told me I bought the right camera. Thanks, Jason. Hey, he liked my comment. The next person whose review popped up was a guy by the name of Mark Bennett. Now, Mark offers a good comparison between, right, Sony's other new release, the FX30, and Sony's ZV-E1. I like what he does here. He just creates a list on one side and then a list on the other. I mean, this list is incredible. He goes through all the advantages of getting the FX30. It's cheaper, 2 card slots. You can read them all. But then he talks about everything that's incredible with the ZV-E1 and all of its advantages. This is another fantastic video to sink your teeth into to help you understand what camera could be right for you. What I like about Mark is if you go to his homepage on YouTube, he spells it out for you right away. In real life, I'm a comedian, but I like cameras so much that he wanted his own channel. I highly recommend that you subscribe to his channel. Next, I jumped over to Sad Studio. Sad Studio comes out, and like the dad and all of us, he gives you his opinion right away about the Sony ZV-E1, and it's through the dad perspective. Let's see what Sad Studio had to say.
Vlogging camera that's crop sensor, and now they have the ZV-E1, which is the full frame version. This is a really cool camera, but I'm not going to get one for a few reasons. Number one, and the most important, I think, is the price. This body alone costs $3,000 plus tax. So if you buy with the body alone, then you're going to need a lens. What's a good vlogging lens? The Sony 20mm f1.8? That lens new costs $1,200 as well. Would any content creator, even if this is a great camera, honestly tell somebody who's just getting started, buy this camera for $3,000, get the Sony 20mm lens, that's $1,200 bucks. After tax, That's $4,700 after tax Canadian.
I just love it when a YouTuber is willing to pull out a calculator and start doing simple math with you. Yeah, the ZV-E1 offers a high price tag, a point of entry, and it doesn't even come with a lens. I don't even think it comes with an electronic viewfinder. And Sad Studio brings this all out. The dad in me wants to be like, hey, spend your money wisely, figure it out. But then I go back to Peter McKinnon. What does he tell us? Buy what you can afford and learn how to use it. The next YouTuber that popped up on my radar for the Sony ZV-E1 was Tight Shirt Terry Warfield. This guy is awesome, and I am so glad that he has gone full-time YouTube. He brings up a really great point about the Sony ZV-E1. Let's check out what that is.
The other thing that's really dope about this camera that no other Sony camera can say, if I can get it in focus, is look at this on the screen. So typically with a Sony camera, you cannot adjust anything from the screen when it comes to like shutter speed, ISO, anything like that. Well, would you look at this, ISO, and then you could just change it right on the screen. Sony, can we please get this on all the other cameras? Come on, man. We need this ASAppington.
Taught me a new word, ASAppington. How cool is that for the Sony ZV-E1, you can actually use the touchscreen to change something as simple as the ISO. You no longer have to use the scroll wheel. This is great. And did you notice what lens he was shooting on? I thought that was pretty cool. The 17-28 Tamron 2.8 lens, which is currently the lens that I am on right now. Great job, Terry. Really good review. Keep up the great work. I'm a big fan of your channel. One of the newer channels out there that I came into is called Gemini Connect. I like what she has to say about the Sony colors in the new ZV-E1.
But you know, this recent generation of Sony cameras has made some big improvement in the colors. And so the ZV-E1 actually allows you to shoot in S-Cine tone. And you can also shoot in various log profiles and even upload your own LUTs.
That's fantastic. I like that she addresses the fact that some of the Sony colors haven't been the easiest, but that with the ZV-E1 you can use S-Log3 or S-Cinetone or even upload your own LUT. And as someone who has struggled with that S-Log2 and really want to create my own video called S-Log2 You Suck and I'm Never Going to Use You Again, I really like what she had to say. The next reviewer that popped up was Arthur R. And Arthur cuts right to the point really quickly in his review. And he talks about what happens when a new camera is released and everything that surrounds that. Let's look and see what Arthur has to say about that.
And also with any new camera announcement, it's easy to get on the hype train. Look, it's an amazing camera, I get it, but I think some more time will definitely allow for me personally to gain a more logical and slightly more emotionally unbiased perspective. Now the only full...
It's easy to get on the hype train and only time will tell. Boy, he is 100% correct. I like that he brings that up. Every new shiny piece of technology comes out and I'm thinking, boy, I need that. Sad Studio tells me it's going to cost me a lot of money, and Arthur R is telling me to, whoa, hold back. Let's just wait and see if there's a camera that you really need to buy. And now, Arthur brings up one of my favorite points about the Sony ZV-E1 and a camera that's close to my heart, the Sony A7C. Arthur, take it away.
Now the only full-frame camera that I currently own is this Sony A7C, and this was a very exciting release when it came out because what Sony did is they took a full-frame sensor, really the one out of the A7 III, crammed it into an APS-C size camera body and released it. And still to this day, this is the cheapest way to get into a full-frame Sony mirrorless camera if you're looking for a new model.
Well, there you have it. The cheapest way to get into a Sony full-frame mirrorless camera is the Sony A7C. I highly recommend it. I think I'm going on year number 3. Yes, that Sony camera is a little older in comparison to the Sony lineups, but it is still a great quality camera that can take 24 megapixel pictures as well as shoot incredible video. The last person who pops up is Dylan Blackburn. Dylan is a photographer out of the North Carolinas, and Dylan has a great insight into the Sony ZV-E1 and, of course, the Sony A7C too. Let's see what Dylan has to say about the future.
The original A7C is running on 5-6-year-old hardware at this point. So if you're trying to do professional photo and video work, wait for the A7C II.
I like Dylan's positive thinking. Yes, in the future there should be a Sony A7C II, and you should really wait for it. But then I go back to the very beginning with Peter McKinnon. What did Peter tell us about cameras in 2023?
So just like whatever you can afford, buy the best that you can afford, and that's probably going to be good enough if you have it with you and you actually try to learn it inside and out and learn technique versus, you know, what's better, what's going to make me better. Nothing's going to make you better. It doesn't matter what it is. Nothing will make you better unless you're out in the world using your...
I just gotta laugh. I love it when I feel like he's mugging me. What's gonna make you better? Nothing's gonna make you better unless you get out there and use whatever camera you have. So when it comes down to the Sony ZV-E1, I'm just gonna go and quote the master of them all. Take what money you have and buy the camera that's really good for you, and then learn how to use that camera. I'm still sticking with my Sony a7C, and I got my fingers crossed that Dylan is correct, that the Sony a7C II is gonna come out. And then, just like the Sad Studio, I will start saving my money with the calculator to figure out how long it'll take me to buy that new camera. Thanks for watching the review or the reviews with me. I am Oliver Weah. Keep taking pictures, keep shooting video with whatever camera you have, and I will see you out there in the next shoot.